You know, I love podcasting. I have since 2006, back when you had to use like a Dixie cup with string to make the thing work. And that's why I'm so excited that we recently moved Mysterious Goings On to Anchor FM to record our podcast. I gotta tell you, I don't regret it a bit. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. Not going to lie to you, when I first heard about Anchor, I was a little dubious because I've been doing it the hard way for so long. But I got to tell you, it's very easy. Use a Stripe account. Get sponsors. You're not paying monthly hosting fees. The sound quality is great. The distribution is phenomenal. Friends, download the free Anchor app today if you want to start your own podcast, or go to anchor.fm to get started. Remember, you heard it here first on Mysterious Goings On. Welcome back to Mysterious Goings On. Hey, it's me, Alex Greenwood, your host, and here we are again in the midst of a pandemic, as opposed to the last episode when we weren't in the midst of a pandemic. Of course we were. It just feels like it's been there forever. And you know, there are effects on all walks of life by this, and don't want to minimize the effects that it's having, obviously, on healthcare and on the lives of people who have contracted the disease and, God forbid, have been killed by it, or family members. But there's also things to the larger level of society that are being affected by COVID-19. And one of those areas has a lot to do with all of us, and that's the food service industry. And I'm talking everything from food service industry people who cook your food, deliver your food right now, curbside delivery, whatever, those folks, to the suppliers up the supply chain, to the manufacturers who create food service products. And in that vein, if you're a longtime fan of the show, you may recall that we had a really interesting talk with Brian Hutton, who is a food service product designer with heavy marketing experience and business development experience in the food service industry. He gave a great interview. If you haven't heard it yet, it's in an episode called The Restaurant's Invisible Man, which, by the way, aside from a couple of my monologues, is the most downloaded episode of Mysterious Goings On. It tickles me to death to know that here's a story or a podcast about creativity and writing. You know, it germinated from there. Pardon the pun with germination, but it started there. And then a guy who designs food service products is actually the most popular episode. I love that. And so that's why when I thought about COVID, I wanted to bring Brian back and talk to him about the things that he is seeing now in the industry, the things that are interacting with you in the industry as a consumer, and what he foresees happening down the road. Welcome back, Brian Hutton.
Thank you. As an invisible man, you actually don't know I may have actually been sitting here the entire time. I wasn't.
This is where I need to go track down the Claude Rains drop in of him screaming the Invisible Man, you know. Oh my gosh.
I'll show you who I am and what I am. Look, he's all eaten away. How do you like that,
How are you doing?
I'm doing well, sheltering in place, doing my best to socially distance and, keep our family safe and those that we interact with. So
where do you work? Maybe you tell everybody where you work and where you're located. Yeah.
Sure. I'm in the Chicago area with a company called Tablecraft Products Company. We are we design manufacture and import a range of small wares, is the type of products we call it, for the food service and retail industry. You may have seen our products. We also sell to retail department store channel as well. But primarily small products. Our most popular items are things like squeeze bottles and baskets, but we support a lot of restaurants and people who use the products at home as well.
Now, you're a designer, and you hold partially or part of a patent, I know, on some design, on a design, and you've
Correct.
designed, how many products would you say over your career you've designed that have gone to market?
I don't know. I would say in the thousands, probably.
Wow.
Certainly hundreds, and that's a mix of products. Some that were that I designed from ideation all the way through items that are minor modifications to existing products in the market. So
we discussed the last time the Better Burger, which is in a lot of burger joints or a lot of restaurants that serve burgers all across the country.
Correct, and that's really a more generic term. It's been very popular for burgers, for sandwich, farm to table, appetizers. There's a range of products there. So the type of restaurant, even though it was initially inspired by the Better Burger segment, it's actually grown far beyond that. So.
That's fantastic, man.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to learn more about that stuff, go back to that episode I mentioned. There'll be a link in the show notes at mgopod.com. Brian, let's just get right into it then. I know you're very busy. I don't want to keep you super long here, but I had just a few questions regarding COVID-19, obviously. So right off the bat, and I think all listeners want to know this one. How is this currently affecting consumers? And then we'll go into looking down the road. But right now, what has happened? Let's say this: what has happened between February and April 2020 in the industry? Because this has been seismic.
It's huge for the food service industry, because you think about delivery and curbside as a percentage of total restaurant sales. It was a very small portion. So all of the in-store sales, dining sales in most states just disappeared. So that left a huge gap. Some of the fast food had a fairly significant portion that was drive-through business already, and that is able to continue. And so fast food is able to weather just a little bit better. However, yes, the industry as a whole is being significantly impacted with double-digit drops in sales, in customer counts. It's just extremely dramatic. And some are responding with just closing the stores temporarily and furloughing employees. And then, as we'll talk, some are reacting in other ways to try and build business, and then some are using it as an opportunity for philanthropic activity and helping others. So I think a lot of people are reacting in different ways. But to your original question, yes, imagine there's, in the U.S. alone, this isn't globally, in the U.S. alone, there's about 1 million restaurants. So you're talking about tens of millions of employees. It's the single largest employment segment in the country is this segment. So it's just being hammered because of COVID.
Is delivery and curbside, to your knowledge, and forgive me if I'm asking you something you just don't know, but at least you can extrapolate, I would assume, bearing on your experience in the industry. But is curbside and delivery, is that helping the industry as a whole just limp along, or are there people thriving? I know you mentioned that fast food always has drive-thrus, but I'm talking a little bit about maybe more local type restaurants and enterprises, or chef-driven enterprises, or things that aren't typically delivery or curbside.
Right. So I would say what we would call a full-service restaurant. So where their primary business is in-store dining. those are the hardest hit, and those are the ones that are trying to turn to curbside and delivery as a way to limp along. So that's one. Fast food has they continue to have drive-through, but some have expanded or attempted to expand their delivery or by waiving fees, making it easier to order, do those type of things. So they're trying to recover some of that lost in-store business. The third group is a small, very small group, but a group that was growing, and that was businesses where their model was based around delivery to begin with. And so those are called ghost kitchens, and or where they would sometimes in a shared kitchen environment, sometimes in a single proprietorship environment, would make meals specifically for ordering. So they have no dining room whatsoever. It's kitchen only. And those have seen an increase in business. So they're doing extremely well in this environment because their existing customer base was already designed around delivery. And so they're doing extremely well.
And I have no reason to believe that curbside and delivery, even if the pandemic, as it ebbs and flows, and I think at least until we get the vaccine and herd immunity develop, which could be another, let's face it, 2 years, this is going to become pardon the tired cliched phrase, new normal. Is that correct?
I think so. The transition will be would be if people are allowed to come back into public in some way, shape, or form. I think the restaurants will then react by spreading tables apart, trying to maintain social distancing while allowing patrons to come in, and do some things like that. We can and maybe delve into that as well.
Like a food safety first mentality.
Correct. And so, I mean, in my vision, I see, yes, not only doing social distancing, creating barriers at to-go and takeout and payment and host stations, doing visible things that just build confidence. So that would be staff wearing masks and even wearing gloves, which there's a big debate about whether or not to wear gloves because it gives you a false sense of security if you're wearing gloves. A lot of restaurants had gotten away from gloves in the kitchen and just promote good hand washing technique instead.
Because you can wear gloves, but then I've seen people wear gloves and then they handle the cash from the cash drawer, and then they go right back to it's. I've seen that at I won't say. I've seen that at
a number of restaurants, sure. Or even if they take the gloves off and then put them back on, they're now grabbing the outside of the glove, which is the contaminated. They contaminated the outside portion and not grabbed. Yeah, it is.
Okay, so let's say this summer there is a dip and there's more testing and people can. But are we talking about, do you think, getting your temperature taken before you're allowed to enter the restaurant? And then secondarily, how do you eat with a mask on?
That's a good, all very good questions. I don't know. I would think that they may that may be an environment where you would mask coming in or have some sort of shield, or the staff is masked, but you would unmask while dining. Those are all very good questions that I don't know that anyone has the answers to. I would say there's probably, if we loosen up some of the regulations in the summer, that would be a perfect time to encourage outdoor dining. Mm-hmm. But I know. But I know for my family and I, we will probably still do to-go and curbside much more frequently.
It's going to take a lot for me to want to eat in public again anytime soon. Like I said, until I'm just crazy about making sure we're okay, and I don't want to expose myself unnecessarily to anything or my family. And until we know testing, especially, for all we know, Brian, you and I've had it, or we have it, and we're asymptomatic, and then we could be putting lives at risk. This is what I think a lot of people don't. I'm not trying to be political, but this is what a lot of people don't seem to understand. I feel fine, but you don't know until we can test you if you are fine. It's insidious.
Right.
So sorry, didn't mean to go off on that. So in-store self-ordering, though, we're talking about some no-touch solutions. Do you see that as an issue coming up?
Yes, and that's actually growing already. So the growth up until February was with kiosk ordering. Mm-hmm. It was convenient. It allowed the kitchen to stay ahead of the ordering line, but that was now a critical control point. Using restaurant terminology, that's a HACCP problem. That's a hazard analysis critical control point that you want to avoid, because now you would have multiple customers touching the same place, which is a potential transmission point. However, a lot of restaurants have the ability to order in an app or online. Fast food places were first to adopt it, but others, because of the growth of their delivery and curbside pickup, now have the ability for you to order in an app from your own phone. So there's nothing now to stop when stores reopen for sit-down customers for them to just order from the app on their phone and get a confirmation number or something like that they could then use. So it would be a completely touch-free environment.
Brian, we talked last time when your interview last time with us about reasons why certain food doesn't hold up well in a delivery. Isn't that funny? I mean, remember that? And I was like, oh,
Correct.
Man. And we're talking about French fries, a lot of French fries.
It's horrible,
like that.
Yeah.
So what are you doing, sir, to ameliorate this? I'd like to know what you're designing so that my French fries that are being delivered are as tasty and golden and not soggy as they were when they got cut out.
So what I've got going on is maybe a little more top secret, but I have heard that some of the large potato manufacturers are actually working on a non-nutritive crunch enhancer. Are working on both the product itself, mm-hmm. as well as packaging. So the big problem with French fries in particular is moisture, and so they're working to develop packaging that has maybe micro holes or things to absorb moisture so that the things stay crispy. So my trick is, when I get stuff home, I'll usually go ahead and have the oven preset to 200 or 250, throw it in there for a few minutes to crisp things up. That's a personal
great idea.
thing.
Yes, but do you see as a part of what Tablecraft is doing, creating? I know in another company you develop kind of things like a Cambro. I'm not saying you invented the Cambro, but you invented
things that maintain temperature,
right.
Things that help. Yes, and I think there will be a product development boom related to. On the disposable packaging side, not only upscaling the look and feel, because mm-hmm. Nicer restaurants want to maintain that brand image. So you wouldn't want to eat, a McCormick and Schmick's meal out of a styrofoam container, right? You want something that looks nice, that's upscale, but also, yes, if it can enhance the performance. And in a lot of ways, McDonald's Arch Deluxe was ahead of their time.
No, it was the McDLT, wasn't it?
Keeps
the hot side hot, the cold side
cool.
cool.
Exactly, and that something like that. Those type of assemble at home style will be developed more. Yeah. And then you and I have discussed in the past the concept that I call toy food, which is all the prep work has been done for a meal kit, and all you have to do is heat and combine. And
like a HelloFresh or something, or
correct. many of the meal kits, that the traditional meal kits that you would buy at a high-end grocery or on those ordering, you actually have to do the prep work. You have to do the slicing and dicing and chopping and become a saucier. This is all done for most of the restaurants. So it's really just a matter of combining and cooking. And so it's easy to do. All the hard work has been done for you, and it tastes as good as the restaurant. Another real advantage is it allows the restaurants to keep some of their secret sauces or the portions of each individual ingredient a secret, so that you could come up with a copycat recipe, but it wouldn't be the exact portions.
And again, I'm not asking you to pick winners or losers here, okay? But is there a type of food, or a type of cuisine, even a nationality of a cuisine, an ethnicity? Is there a type of food that just doesn't lend itself well, in your opinion, to curbside or delivery?
So for me, I really think of the high-end steak and seafood, just because so much of it is experiential, personally. So if I'm spending, I don't know, it could be $80 to $100 per person for a full meal experience, including a wine, an appetizer, a main course. I don't want to eat it out of a to-go container.
Yeah.
And so much of it really deteriorates very quickly from the time it's prepared. If you don't get it to the table in a matter of a couple of minutes, even under a heat lamp, it'll last maybe a little longer. Then the experience is kind of ruined. The crispness on the outside of a baked crust on a seafood dish, or those type of things, just it goes from worth $100 to worth $15 really quickly. so in that environment, I would say that is going to be harder to translate. So the response to that would be the growth of ghost kitchens that are closer to the point of purchase and dining is going to help somewhat, so that time from when it leaves the restaurant to it arriving on a doorstep is shortened dramatically, or they're going to have to respond with more meal kit type environment. So,
well, that leads me into I want to talk a little bit about operators here. I'm sure maybe we'll get some listeners here. I know for a fact a few people in the industry on that level or listen, but so I'll lead into that. I'll bridge between the consumer side to operators with. That said, it's interesting. You talk about how steaks are experiential, but also you get a steak cooked, and you don't want to cut into a steak right away. You want to let it rest, but you don't want to let it rest in a styrofoam container for 10 minutes or 20 minutes, right? So
exactly.
So there's two things here. Texas Roadhouse has offered to let you just buy the steaks and grill them at home. And I did that. I had a gift card to Texas Roadhouse we'd had for years. We like going there, but it's always so packed. We just never went very often. So we had like $75 worth of meat and baked potatoes that we could buy. So we bought like 6 baked potatoes and a selection of meats and called ahead, drove up, picked it up safely, securely, smile on their face, tipped them well, and went home. And I grilled up some massively good steaks. Not as good as they'd make them, but I got to be honest, damn close. So, but I was going to say about that, there's two things. So that's an example of an operator going, crap, we can either just fold up our tent and not pay our people. And I believe their CEO even has foregone his pay. These are good people, obviously. But that's a way of like going, okay, what do we have? There's a lot of brands like Panera, I think, they're trying to be like a grocery store in a way, right?
Correct. Yeah. So there was one challenge that was revealed almost immediately, and we talk about the toilet paper, but now we're talking about groceries, milk and eggs that are spoiling, and produce that's being tilled under because the groceries were in the wrong form. So the grocery stores didn't have eggs, but the commercial you could go to a commercial distributor and buy 6 dozen eggs extremely easily. You just couldn't get 1 dozen eggs. And so kind of bridging that gap, just as a benchmark, up until February, about 50% of food dollars were spent in the grocery store and 50% in a restaurant. That's changed dramatically, but it left us kind of in the lurch, where grocery stores didn't have enough stuff and restaurants had too much. So as a way to make a little bit of money, but also fill a gap in the distribution channel, a number of chains, just as you said, became kind of mini grocery stores and offered the products that they have anyway. They would break them down into smaller forms. So California Pizza Kitchen is another one that has a kind of mini grocery store, and that may become a permanent addition to a number of the restaurant chains. If you want to buy, half a dozen eggs or something like that, which in suburbia, I'm a mile away from a grocery store, so it's not a big deal for me to run to the grocery store. But
if you want to go to the grocery store,
which I
will not.
But for someone in an urban area, that may be a huge convenience that they're worth. For them is worth doing. Saves them an extra trip.
Another thing that you hear a lot is for local and sizable restaurants and chains is support them not only by buying food, but you can't eat out every day. You can't deliver, but buy a gift card. Well, a good friend of mine, Bob, who's been on the show, he bought some as gifts to his college-age kids, some gift cards. I won't say from where, but he tweeted about this. And then the restaurants said, oh, yeah, thanks for buying those, but you can't use those until the pandemic's over. Now, I think
that's rare.
Okay,
I would call that an exception. Most are if they're offering delivery, that they are underserved based on their capacity at this point. So most, I would say, would gladly accept that. And then a lot are doing philanthropic things. There are two ways. One, you can get online. At least in my area, you can get online and buy a meal that's going to be delivered to a first responder or a hospital, and they'll have days that for specific hospitals or for specific locations, and you could spend anywhere from $10 to $15 to buy to pay ahead for a meal for someone, and then there are a number of restaurants that just out of the kindness of their heart are giving philanthropically to first responders as well.
Right.
And so they'll take 100 bowls of ramen and take them to a local hospital, arrange that and have it delivered. And so they're just doing what they can, given the fact that they do have extra space, extra time available to do those things, and it's kind of paying it forward. They're just hoping that when things return to a sense of normalcy, that people remember that when they're making a restaurant choice.
Right. I just did a previous episode with Carrie Kirkpatrick from a Houston-based CPK group, and did I say that right? It's CKP. She's going to kill me if she's listening. And they were talking about how like McDonald's, they donated buns to a charity outfit that for kids' meals, because kids are out of school and there's a lot of kids who don't get that was their only good meal and all that kind of. And then I just chimed in with a McDonald's here just this morning. I watched they backed a semi truck up to our largest food bank and just boxes of beef patties,
Sure.
So people are going to remember that behavior, but they will also remember the store or the restaurant that said, yeah, thanks for buying the gift card, but we're not going to honor it until we're open again.
Right.
Right. Which is.
And then there's a lot that are kind of stuck in the middle. They applied for the PPP, but
good luck with that.
But they're just forced because of traffic. If you have a 90% drop in traffic, you can't keep a store open. You can hardly pay the rent, right?
Yeah.
So in that environment, they're going to close temporarily, and then hopefully, when things come back, they'll open back up and hopefully be able to get back their good staff members. But it's it's going to take some time.
Let's talk a little bit about your sector now, manufacturing. And of course, if I ask something that's proprietary, of course you'll shut me down on that. But
Sure.
And I don't. And I just looking at Tablecraft and what you're doing. Do me a favor, and I mean just briefly, walk me through supply chain for you first of all, and then
Okay.
let's talk a little bit about how that's been affected.
Okay.
Typical supply chain.
So for us, because we're a portion of our products, almost 30%, come from overseas. So a number of the products that we distribute, that supply chain was at least temporarily slowed down because of activities that were happening overseas, completely out of our control. So things coming from China, Malaysia, now India. I mean, we were in a great inventory position with those, so it didn't create any disruptions. But that's a portion. We then have domestic suppliers. Most of the domestic suppliers and us are considered essential employees. Our businesses will remain open because we're supplying the restaurant industry and supplying, the food service industry, which is essential. So our manufacturers can continue to manufacture for us. We can continue to make things. We can continue to distribute things in the industry. So really the biggest impact for us is on the demand side. But just as a refresher, either contract manufacturer or contract manufacture products, they come to us. We sell to distributors, and then those distributors will sell to the restaurants.
And the public might see the Tablecraft brand in certain retail establishments as well.
Correct. So we have a separate arm that sells to large, department stores. Some of those are impacted negatively and are, kind of closing their doors temporarily. But then there's a number of online stores that we still sell to, names like Amazon, et cetera.
Yeah. Now, part of your job, and we talked about this again in your previous interview, involved not only trade shows, which have all been canceled for the near future. I mean, the massive one in Chicago, NRA. Right, National Restaurant Association. That one was canceled.
Yeah, not the gun people.
Not the gun people. No, they wouldn't cancel that. NAFM was that? Did they have a show?
NAFM is that one is every other year. So this is a non-NAFM year, but the big restaurant show was canceled. So NAFM is North American Food Equipment Manufacturers. So it's basically all the people in the industry except for the people who make food. And then the Restaurant Association includes the food.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, and I've been to the NRA conference, as you know, and it's it fills up the entire McCormick, right? The whole thing.
Correct. Yes.
It's massive, and gosh, all the cooking and the smells and the people, and it's like going to Vegas because it's just sensory overload. But anyway, I digress. But you also would take regular annual or twice annual trips to China to meet with manufacturers, correct? And now, when was the last time you went to China, and how does that typically look? Is that typically like a 2-week deal, and then
it's usually close to 2 weeks, and it will sometimes include a trip to Hong Kong. I'll sometimes start there because there's a trade show there that includes vendors, non-Chinese vendors from primarily Asia, but and then have a sourcing office in China. We'll go, spend some time there, and then attend a big show. They call it the Canton Fair. It's the China Import-Export show, and that's a twice a year exposition. And then visit vendors. So the last time I did it was last spring, and of course my spring trip this year was canceled. That entire show was canceled, and then in the fall, I'm assuming that will be postponed as well, barring unless some kind of magic cure comes along, but based on FDA's testing protocols, I like you, I'm thinking it's probably at the earliest will be next year before something will be, a vaccine would be approved. So,
had you been to Wuhan?
I've been in that area before, so yes. So yeah, I've been as far north as Beijing and as far south as Shenzhen, all primarily in the eastern portion of the country.
And I'm not being funny, but had you ever been to a wet market? Had you ever seen that?
Oh, sure. And there are actually wet market restaurants in Guangzhou where you can
really?
pick. It's primarily seafood, where it looks almost like an aquarium, and you walk in, and you choose what fish you want for dinner, and kind of like we have a lobster tank.
Lobster, sure.
But for them, it would be all types. But then there will occasionally be the more exotic selections where there will be snakes or insects or those type of things, crocodile,
Oh my.
whatever.
Yeah, bat apparently, but
Yes.
that's just fascinating. And I know you appreciate Asian culture and food. And,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
You're always chasing. What is it you say? I'm always chasing.
Well, so that's Japanese, the perfect bowl of ramen. But I love, and I'm fortunate. I have a Chinese-owned traditional Chinese restaurant that's very nice in my local community, and I love to frequent there. I like the spicy Szechuanese style, and hard to find in a Panda Express or a more Americanized Chinese restaurant.
Are you single-handedly keeping that restaurant open right now?
Trying.
Okay, before we wrap up, and this has been very helpful, I'd love to look at the horizon with you, and we will
Sure.
not hold this against you. But
Yeah.
where's it going? Where do you see things by Christmas? Okay, how about this? Where do you see things by Halloween, by Christmas, and then by this time next year? Where do you see things going?
Interesting. Well, I would say first, we talked briefly about packaging, but there will be a wave of new product development and changes that become permanent in the restaurant industry. I mean, we didn't even talk about buffets.
Please tell me those are over forever.
But not necessarily. I mean, you think of a breakfast buffet in a hotel. There will be some sort of buffet will continue to exist. Now, it may be much more pre-packaged. It may become employee assisted, which is what I think will probably be a transition time. I think that will happen both there and at the hot bar and cold bars at the larger grocery stores.
Mm-hmm.
That will, as opposed to that going away, because that was a huge profit, and
Right.
It gave people a variety and selection and ease of use. But instead of having that go away, which is where it is today, I think it will just it'll become employee assisted, where there will be some sort of shield between the person and the food, and they'll have to select it. But there's going to be a range of products required in order to support that, to make that work.
I just want the world's largest sneeze guard between the food and the public.
There will be plenty of those. There's also some antimicrobial products so any kind of touch environment where touching by more than one person of the same thing is required, that there will be antimicrobial agents added to things like Microban, or there's a silver ion technology and triclosan. There's a number of these antimicrobials. So if you're touching a spoon that has that, or touching a door handle, or those type of things, they'll be treated with this, which will inhibit. It would never replace good hand sanitation, never replace good food safety. It never replace good just good hygiene practices. But it's just another barrier there, that another level of protection. So you'll have some of those things, but then just on the warning side, just on the notification side, and just as I mentioned before, there's going to be a lot of products that were very popular on the hospital and healthcare side that are going to migrate to this environment as well. So you mentioned taking people's temperature. Maybe that will happen. I don't know if where HIPAA and privacy and all that, where that line becomes. It will probably happen with employees for sure.
Right. Oh, well, it should. Yeah.
Pretty sure of that. But then, masking, gloves, shields, barriers, separations, lines on the floor so people understand what 6 foot looks like.
Well, there's a lot of jokes we can make right now about how a lot of men don't know the difference between. So anyway, I won't say it.
Yes, something like that.
So do you know what sticks out to me? And I know you're in the industry, and I'm not asking you to pass judgment, but I mean, as I will say this, I just don't see things like Chuck E. Cheese making it.
There will be a lot that have serious problems. You are absolutely right. But some will adapt as well. So there may be something new that replaces it that is a more safe environment. So there will be something will happen. People want to be entertained. They want a place to take their kids. They want a place to have birthday parties. So something will fill that gap. They'll just have to find better ways to do it as safely as possible, and they will. They'll figure it out.
I think if I hear you correctly, as we wrap up here, it's adapt or die, and I don't mean that in a funny way, but as a business, adapt or you're done. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And you asked me to kind of do some vision casting through. I would say in the summer months, some places are going to want to open. Just because this is their livelihood. They want to if they're an owner, they want to do the thing that gives them joy. It gives them pleasure to create food, to serve others. So at some point things will begin to open up. Will there be regional challenges? Very likely, and then I think the really populous areas are going to have a lot of restrictions until a vaccine comes out. So I think it'll open up a bit in the summer because people can kind of spread out and eat outside, and then as we get into the cooler fall months, we want to avoid what happened in the Great Flu pandemic of 1917, 1918, which is everyone got this false sense of security, and then October happened and it just exploded, and there were more deaths there than there were during the original.
That's my big fear. So. People are so impatient as it is, and I don't. And by the way, I'm not impatient with people who feel impatient, but I'm just very concerned. Being a student of history and understanding this. People are going to rightfully want to just say, oh, hell with this. I'm done with this. I'm tired of being inside. I understand that. But you could very well if you're reckless, you could very well see the same thing you're talking about, a repeat of the Spanish flu. Last question, and this is a forecasting question. Let's say the vaccine, herd immunity gets in there, although we're dealing with herd mentality a lot too.
we got a little bit of both of those.
Yeah. Let's say by this time next year, they're announcing a vaccine, and they're going to mass production, and we're going to. So, assuming that happens, let's say that we got this beat. It's going to become more or less like the flu is now, right? There'll be different strains, but we got a vaccine. We can at least mitigate it, knock it down pretty good.
Right.
Do you see things going completely back to normal? Because I think there's. I'll just interrupt real quick and just say I think there's one benefit that's going to last, and that's hygiene.
Mm-hmm. I fear that our memories are very short as a country. So in a lot of ways, I think we will flock to some sort of back to normal mentality. Mm-hmm. I would say in the industry, there will be some long-term impacts. So, as you mentioned, some restaurants will close, but there are right behind it. There will be some aspiring restaurateurs that will be right on their heels. long term, will airline seating and restaurant seating be a little further apart? I hope so.
Yeah.
What will happen to the cruise industry, and what will happen to the hospitality industry in general, and to casino buffets? It remains to be seen. But I mean, my guess is some of those things are going to change permanently, because because we've seen it happen, every 5 years or so, 5 to 10 years, something big has happened. So I think as we'll try and be in a better position for the next time something like this comes up.
That sounds great. You're on the front lines there because you are essential, and you as an industry are keeping us fed. And more importantly, though, I think you're working in an industry. Well, it's most important to be fed, obviously, but as importantly, you are providing comfort. I mean, I don't know about you, but I've had some bad days, and my wife is just like, you know what, we're going to get delivery from so and so. We're going to get this, and it was just, we got that food, and it took me back to a good place. It's kind of like, smelling cookies that remind you of your grandma,
Right.
So,
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think we all have hard days. I mean, you've got parents trying to homeschool. God, when this is over, teachers need to get, all of them need to get a huge raise.
Damn right.
But yes, you make it through the day, and people are posting, they don't remember what day it is. I think some of the news programs are posting, hey, just in case you've forgotten, today is Wednesday or Thursday or whatever the day is. And so this is a nice something to look forward to if you're doing it once a week, or a couple times a week, or once every 2 weeks, whatever that is. It's a nice thing to look forward to, just as people are doing virtual happy hours, and people are doing those type of things. It's a lot of fun, and it's a nice break from the monotony, because it is tough when you're kind of stuck at home.
It is. Brian Hutton, welcome back to the show. Thanks for, again, look at this. We went longer than we anticipated, but I think it's fascinating and good information. And I really appreciate you coming back here on the show. And I'm sure we'll have you back by popular demand. We'll see if this one tops the last one on downloads.
All right.
I'd love that. And to you, listeners, thanks so much. And I know that there are times when you turn to a podcast for information about COVID and things like that, and there's times when you turn to a podcast to not hear about it. So I hope I kind of straddled the line between both on this episode, because you know what? We all care about our food. We all care about getting back to normal. And to me, that's why Brian was somebody I definitely want to have back on the show, and I'm really glad. And I hope you appreciated his insights. I think that they were things that we all need to hear and all need to think about as we move forward. And so I look forward to that. And of course, remember, if you really need a total escape, you can find the John Pilot Mysteries on Amazon.com, or go to mgopod.com and order paperbacks, autographed and personalized by yours truly, mgopod.com. Links will be in the show notes, and I'm going to include a link to Brian's previous episode, The Restaurant's Invisible Man. By the way, I hope you enjoyed our new theme song. That is written by Jamie Green, lead guitarist for Thunderjacket, a great band here in Kansas City. He's also obviously a composer, and he is great at composing music just like that for your podcast or your show or those kinds of things. Get a hold of me through mgopod.com if you'd like more information on how to get a hold of Jamie. But thanks, Jamie, for this wonderful, atmospheric, new, mysterious goings-on theme, an original theme. I didn't just have to go find it somewhere on royalty-free music. I've always loved the theme music I picked before, but this is super special. So big thanks to Jamie Green, who, by the way, did an episode of this show recently too, and on creativity, because he is a environmental lobbyist by day and band leader by night, and I know he's itching to get back and play somewhere, anywhere besides his basement. So anyway, check out the show notes on that, and until next time, keep reading.
It's a great time to get a great deal on a new car when you get approved for an auto loan from PenFed. Our Our Powered by True Car rates are as low as 1.39% APR on new vehicles. Finance for a longer term to lower your monthly bill. Plus, take up to 60 days to schedule your first payment. Join PenFed and together we'll keep you moving forward. Anyone can apply. Visit penfed.org/auto or call 1-800-247-5626. To receive any advertised product, you must become a member of PenFed, insured by NCUA. A little flexibility can go a long way. By refinancing your new or used auto loan with PenFed, you can lower your monthly payments for more flexibility in your budget. You can even schedule your first payment for up to 60 days from the date of your refinance. Calculate how much you could save at penfed.org/auto refi or call 1-800-247-5626 to apply. Membership is open to everyone. To receive any advertised product, you must become a member of PenFed, insured by NCUA.